Okay, as deep as much as I can. Okay, I'll give it a go. We'll give it a go. We'll see how deep we can get. So the first thing we want to do is cover the basics of the video, and then we'll go and see if we can dig even deeper than that. Okay, so let's see. What do we have here? So we've got our... wait, hold on. That's the wrong thing. Ah, I know what it was. Yes. It's the React introduction series. So let's see, projects converting to TS. Okay. And we will go and make ourselves a copy of the basic types. So let me just go and get the right directory there. How are you? You having a good Friday, getting ready for the weekend? All right, so basic types. We'll make this font size a little bigger. Eventually we'll get it set up, and there you go. 0 basic types. Start.js basic types. Okay. Let's try this out. Okay. So let's make these a little bigger. So converting to React from, or sorry, converting to TypeScript from JavaScript. That's the theme of these videos. I think they're really cool. I think the idea, the premise of doing a conversion video like this is really cool because you learn both TypeScript and also the most common thing that we're going to do, which is probably convert existing TypeScript code or JavaScript code to TypeScript. So let's go take a look and see what we've got here. So we got two files. We got this test.js, which includes this basic types.js, and we'll try it out. So we'll run test.js. That's a not very compelling output there, but let's see what we got. So we got a function called isAcat, which if we give it a cat, says true. Sure enough. Cascadia is the font, and let's see, the theme is currently let's see, I just changed it actually. Abyss? I want to know. It isn't that. All right. How do I find out what I'm actually using right now? Is it Apollo? Oh, whoop. Yeah, I guess it's Apollo Midnight. So there you go. Okay, so next function, our same function, is a cat as a dog. Is a dog a cat? Turns out false. So then we're going to add numbers. We're going to add 1 and 2, and we'll get 3. Sure enough, but we add 1 and Jack, which is clearly not correct, and get 1 and Jack because in JavaScript, a number plus a string coerces to a string. We're going to introduce person, Molly. Or we're going to introduce myself, introduction Jack, so that's hello Jack. We'll introduce person, which apparently does its own console of Molly, and that gives us Molly. We will dump an object, and that gives us this object. Okay. And then we'll dump a string or a number. Okay, so we need to be able to handle where an argument can be one of two different things. Okay, so the first thing we want to do in our conversion to TypeScript is to add TypeScript to our project. So we don't have a project currently, but if we just go and do yarn add, we will get a project and also TypeScript and TS node, which is nice. Let's go back over here. We got that. So something I messed up in the original video and I have subsequently fixed in the new videos, that the things that follow, are that I didn't. I have actually TypeScript installed globally, which is fine, but in terms of using it in the project, I didn't do this part of it. So we'll create a new script for start, and then we'll use TS node on test.js just to show you that you can actually run TypeScript on JS and it runs just fine. So let's do that. Yarn start. Very cool. Same exact output. Less colorization, I guess. That's fine. Okay, so let's go and change out TS for our JS for TS. And let's run it again. And what's happening here is it doesn't like require. So I'm going to change out the require for an import, which I think is nicer anyway. There we go. Let's try it one more time. Okay. Test. Hold on. That's weird. Cannot find module. Oh, okay. Test.ts. There we go. All right, so looking good. And that's it. That's all I need to do to convert this file, at least, to TypeScript. So if I go here to isAcat, now we can see, we can start getting some hinting. And what it's telling us is that there's one parameter to isAcat. It's animal. It's any, but it returns a Boolean, so true or false. That's cool, but I think we can do better, obviously. So let's go and upgrade basic types to TypeScript. So change the JS to TS. So now TS and TSX are the equivalent of JS and JSX. So let's try this one more time. And now it's blowing up because it doesn't like the module.requires. So, or module.exports. So let's fix that. We'll just change that to export const, which is not quite right. So we change this guy to export function, get rid of that, and then export const that one. There we go. Okay, cool. And there's no red lines at the moment in here, so that's a good thing. But we are seeing these little squigglies, and I believe that's my any helper telling me that those values are now any, which is not good. Okay, so the thing still runs, but if we go back here again to here, and we do isAcat, we're still stuck with this animal any. And so this is how we're going to start to build out our types. So one of the types that you can use is a string. So we do colon and then string. And that's saying now that animal has to be a string. So if I go back over here to isAcat, what is that? IsAddy. And I put in false. That's not going to like that, because false is a Boolean. I can put in 10. Not going to like that, because a 10 is a number and not a string. The only thing it's going to like is a string. So is, well, in this case, a string with 10 in it is just fine, but not 10. So, all right, and then what can we do about this? We can also say that the output is a string. Oh, nope, it's not a string. It's a Boolean. But we already actually knew that. If I went over here to isAcat, let me see if I can just do it right in here, isAcat. TypeScript is smart enough that it's inferred from the expression that's in here that this is a Boolean, right? If I went and said, let's see, if animal is a cat, then give me it's a cat or null, right? Now, if we go to isAcat, we can see that it's returning a string, which is interesting because it could be a string or null. So yeah, that's an interesting finding there, I guess. Let's try undefined and see if it's smarter about that. isAcat. No, it still likes. Is that true? So is it? Yeah. Okay. I'm surprised. I would have figured that what it was going to tell us to do in that case would be to say string or undefined. But apparently string is good enough for that. I'll have to keep that in mind. But just to follow along with the example, so animal is a cat. That's a Boolean, and everything's cool. So now let's upgrade numbers, add numbers. And this is actually where we're going to find a bug, right? Because 1 and Jack is not a number. So if we go over here and we say that this is a number, and this is a number, then what we get back is that we got a problem here. So let's actually try this out. Let's go over here to terminal and see what happens when you run it in this state. So I'm going to start it up, and it's going to give us exactly the same error as I got in the problems here, that string is not assignable to a type of number. But here's one of the gotchas. Here's where it starts getting interesting. So what's happening is the TS node first does all the type checking, compiles it down to JavaScript, and I guess internally somewhere, and then runs it as JavaScript. But the other way to do this, the other way to integrate TypeScript in your project is to compile it. So let's go and build our little compiler. And TypeScript has brought in TSC, which is a TypeScript compiler. And you can just give it star.ts and it will compile everything in that directory from TypeScript into JavaScript and create some new files along the way. And notice now that there are no JS files. So I will do yarn compile here. And it blows up. What is that? Is Addy? Is that, where'd that come in from? It came out, what? Oh, wow. I need to figure out what that was. Is a TTY. Okay. So it's still giving us that error, but it has gone and built the JS. So those two things happen concurrently and separately from each other and do not block each other. So you can fail the type check, but still get compiled files. So that's something to watch out for. If you're doing like a build process or a CI/CD, right? You've got to watch out for, you can't use the presence of JS files after the compile as verification that the type check passed. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Also, it's worth looking at, this is actually pretty decent JS code, so it's nice to see that the result of the transpiler in this case is actually quite clean. So that's always good to see. And then just to kind of reinforce this, if I were to do now node test.js, right, I still get this issue because it is compiled. It did create the JS, even though the test failed. So TS node will not work, but compiling and then running node on it will work. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're going through this kind of stuff. So in the meantime, let's just get rid of that. Okay. So let's continue on with our conversion. I would say it's pretty easy. It's a string, and it's going to return a string. If we want to just specify that, that's fine. Introduce person, it definitely takes a string, that's for sure. But what does it output? So if I do this, introduce person, it takes a string for name, but it returns void. So void, let me just bring that back up again and highlight it. Void actually does exist in JavaScript. It is a term in JavaScript. And it means that there's no return value. The first time I saw void was in C. It's kind of in the whole range of C languages. So C, C++, all that stuff. Anytime you have a function that doesn't return a return value, then it returns a void. I actually started programming in Fortran, if you can believe it. And in that world, you actually have, hey, Emmanuel, you actually have a function and then what do they call it? A procedure. And a procedure was a function that didn't return any value. Okay, so to specify that, we'll just do void, although that already is inferred by this console log. The TypeScript understands console, and it understands that it returns a void. Okay, so now dump object. So this clearly takes a string for the first value, but it kind of takes an any for the object. But, and this is an interesting tool that people have gotten excited about since I showed it on the first video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do I'm going to add another module. It's called type coverage. And it's very handy for TypeScript projects. And it basically goes and scans your whole project to see if you're using any anywhere. So if I just run it, type coverage. And let's go try it out, type coverage. Oh, come on. Okay. He's going to tell us we have 61 out of 65 places where we could put types. And of the 4 of those are any. And we can actually get some detail. We can just add on detail. And we can see where we have any. So it's here and here. Okay. So the safer alternative to any is unknown. So if you're going to specify a type and you're thinking, oh, I'll do any, right? Because it is any. Unknown is actually safer. It allows you as an engineer to do less. And what you end up doing is you end up then coercing whatever that is to a known type as you use it. In this case, it works just fine. But yeah, unknown is the sort of safe variant of any. Okay. So we're getting close here. Let's take a look and let's try that coverage one more time. That's cool. And let's try and run it one more time, see if it works. Just make, always want to be running fine. So the last thing we need to do is do this dump string or number. So if I were to go over here to this, and knowing what we know, we can say string. And now we don't have now the number doesn't work. Kind of drag. Okay, but if we do number, now string doesn't work. Okay, that's not great. So what you can do is you can create a union type. And that's this. So this or, and I just like to read it as or. It's like a number or a string, right? And that's a thing that you can do if you've got parameters that have potentially different types. You could say this could be a null as well. That's fine. Could be undefined. You can keep going as long as you like. And what it does is it creates a type that is the union of all of these types. And as long as whatever match, as long as the parameter matches any one of those things, then you're good to go. All right, so let's try it out here. Let's see if we still work on our TS node. Looking good. Let's check our coverage. And we have 100% coverage. Awesome. Cool. So, Ashutosh, that is the end of the video. These TypeScript videos are meant to be fairly short. Like you can kind of watch a couple over a lunch break, that kind of thing, and maybe follow along. So I'm open to suggestions as to where you want to go from here. We could start talking about arrays. We could start talking about objects. We could start talking about generics. I don't know what your skill level is with TypeScript. So any thoughts going on from here? The follow-up videos to this will cover all of that. So we're going to cover objects next, and then arrays after that, then classes, and into generics. Thank you. All right. So if whatever you want to know next, just let me know and put it in the comments, and then we can keep going from here. Anyway, I certainly hope you guys are interested in TypeScript. I think it's pretty valuable. To get to the React stuff, which I think is like the 5th video in, you do have to kind of know quite a bit about generics and that kind of stuff, because the React stuff makes really good use of what are called generics. Okay, so that was a quick 18 minutes. So I think I'll just self-direct here into the next section of this. Let's go for some objects, because that's really the next thing that you want to do anyway. So let's just say that we've got a new type of object called let's see, a person. So we'll say it's William. All right. So William has a name, William, and they are a subscriber, I guess, hopefully, to the channel. Touching in on being disciplined with respect to TypeScript would be nice. Not mixing JS and okay, fair enough. Yeah, so I mean, as we move through, we always end up at the end of the video with pure TypeScript, and so that is, I think, how I can certainly touch on it and say, you should either be TypeScript or JavaScript. Pick one, but not both. Okay, so William is a subscriber. So let's create a new function called is a subscriber, and log that is a subscriber. We'll give it William. So let's go and add that to our stuff that we're bringing in. Bring it over here. I mean, I could just write in the same file. That's fine too. So we're going to get a person. And then we're going to say person.subscriber, I guess. That's pretty easy. It's nice when you have a function with no actual conditionals in it. Okay, but if we go back over here, we can see that is a subscriber is not particularly well defined at this point. So any, it not only it not only takes an any, but it returns an any. Great, fantastic. So what we want to do is we want to define the person type. So one way to do that is just to basically go and grab an example person and then put in colon like that, and then just paste it in. But obviously this is not great, so we want to go and replace these. So this is going to be a string, and then this is going to be a Boolean, like that. So if you go back now and look for is a subscriber, I will, yeah, eventually. And thank you for the call out. I'll definitely get there. Okay, so we got is a subscriber, and it basically gives us what we need from it, and then it tells us we're getting back a Boolean because in this case subscriber is a Boolean, and we're just returning subscriber, so it infers that. But there's an easier way to do this, particularly if you have multiple things that all use the same structure here, and that's to define a type. So I'll start by just putting in there, but then I'll say we have a type of person, and then put in our type. And now also if I go back here, I can see that now it's actually showing me the alias and not just the mechanics of it. Although if I were to go and add a new field here, let's see, coolness. William is a 10 on the coolness scale there. So interestingly, let's see, is that a problem? That's interesting. Why isn't I'm kind of surprised that that's not giving me a problem, because I'm actually getting more than that. That's cool. Okay. So we can then add on coolness, and if I were to say that that is a string, then William no longer qualifies because coolness is a number, and that those two types are not compatible. I can also do it this way. I can export type person and then bring that in here, include it. And then when I define this, William, I can put in there and say that's going to be a person. And now it tells me, no, you got more stuff than what you specified. So that's actually really cool, because in my experience, particularly on code that's kind of fast moving, you'll have different pieces of React code or Angular or whatever you're writing in that have dependencies on different data structures and different fields, and then you'll change the name. Like maybe you change the name in your state store, and you have to go and kind of manually pick about types versus interface. Yeah, okay. If you need to go and then manually pick out where that you use that value, that key, and then change it. So let's just say that, like, for example, this person API is an API surface, and we want to go and change, coolness to coolness amount. Now we can see that anywhere where we defined and used person, or that we used person, now it's giving us an error, and we need to go change that. So that's hugely valuable in terms of maintenance. Okay, Mr. McCormack. Types versus interfaces. So we haven't gotten to interfaces yet. That's actually in the classes video that we come up with in a bit. That's an interesting one because those two are very, very closely aligned to each other. We could say here, for example, that this is an interface. And this will work just fine. I tend to use interfaces when I'm creating a new class that needs to implement that interface. So, for example, let's be export an interface for a database. And by convention, you might see I at the beginning of the interface to tell you it's an interface. And then, for example, get by ID might give you an ID as a number, and then returns a string or something like that. And then when you create a class called, I guess, I don't know, file database or whatever, you can say that it implements that interface, and then you will not have a correct class until you implement all of the, so return, I guess, I don't know, hello, right? Something like that. Implements that database. So now it's clear. And the great thing about that is if you export these interfaces as part of your API surface, then if ever these interfaces change, then automatically you're going to be warned on the consumption side that you're no longer you're no longer conforming to that interface, and you're not going to work, which is something you wouldn't get from JavaScript. JavaScript will happily take an object and just assume that get by ID is in there, even if now get by ID is called get by ID foo, right? And everything blows up. So there's no automated checking, and that's one of the big things that you want from TypeScript, is to give you that automated checking. Does that help out a little bit? I'm a learner too on all this, and I think I'm on my 3rd TypeScript book, and I don't think I've ever really gotten a completely straight answer on when you should use types and when you should use interfaces. So I would love to hear if you have any thoughts on that. All right. So, Ashutosh, any ideas on, is this helping you? Or are we digging into depth enough for you? All right. So, yeah, this is kind of the end of that video. I don't know. If you have any questions, please put them in the channel. And, yeah, otherwise it will probably adjourn and then go over to the Discord in a minute or two if nobody decides they want to ask me more questions. Yeah, thank you for showing up. This is really cool. Happy to spend an hour with you on Fridays. It's actually really fun on the new series of videos, actually going out and doing a lot of like outside work to go and put in the intros and outros of these videos. So that's been really great. Using interfaces mostly, not fully sure why. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder. Yeah, there's certain things that you can't extend. Or can you extend a type? I don't think you can extend a type, but you can extend an interface. Oh yes, yes. Let's talk about optional parameters. Thank you, Anchor. Okay. Yeah, that's actually really good. Okay, so let's go and make this person a bit more complex and realistic. So we're gonna have name become first name and middle name and last name, right? So now this guy no longer is valid, right? So we're getting some issues on that. So let's go and say that your name is that. I'm going to say that your first name is William. I know that much. And oops, that is not valid JavaScript or TypeScript. And your middle name is J, and your last name is Smith. There you go. Okay, so now we have a decent person, and a well-defined person that matches the interface in this case. So we'll say person's name. Yeah, get person name. How about that? And it's going to format that name for us. Okay, so we'll take a person. All right. And then we will just, we'll just format it. So person.first.name. Person.first.middle. All right, so that was wrong. What am I doing? First. All right. Name middle. And name last. Okay, so this is going to work, probably. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, so let's trim this down so you guys can just see, you folks can see it in its most bare bones form here. Okay. So we'll console log out, get first name, or get name, get person name. So let's see what we're doing for William here. Okay, get person name is not a function. That's interesting. Export const get person name. Why is that not coming through? That seems really silly. Okay. Okay. Person name is not a function. Well, what is get person name then? Well, hold on. Let me just make sure. Get person name is person. That looks great. What are you talking about? Looks fine to me, man. Undefined. Ooh, that's wrong. All right, let's trim this back a little bit so we can be really, really precise about this. Because I just want to get to where I can show optional parameters. Okay. Okay. So that should work. And if it doesn't, we'll just, yeah, okay. Nope, that's not working. Okay. There we go. Let's just bring it in. There we go. And get rid of the exports. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure why that didn't work. The joys of live streaming. Okay. So we got William J. Smith. That's cool. But what if we wanted this person to be optional? Well, the one thing we can do is we can say that this is optional. So that all you need to do is put a question mark in there. And we'll start up again. And it's cool. It's fine. William comes in. But what if we just do nothing? So we're expecting nothing. So now we're getting that we cannot read property name of undefined. Absolutely true. So what can we do to handle this cascade of things that happen when you have an optional parameter like this? And one thing you can do is you can use optional chaining, which is a feature that's baked into TypeScript and is a Babel extension to JavaScript. Although I think it is coming into ECMAScript as a full-on feature in the next couple of releases. So I can just put a question mark dot in front of the dot. And then what it basically says is if person is an object, I guess, is defined, then continue on to person name. And if that's defined, then continue on to person name first. So if I were to write this out in JavaScript, in regular JavaScript, I'd have to say if person and person.name and person.name.first. What is the personal bar? What is that? Name.first. Okay. So this is the equivalent of doing that. So if I do that all the way across here, like so, and we'll rerun it. Now we get undefined, 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 which is okay, great. Yeah, it's fine. but not great. So another thing we can do is we can use, we could use or like that and say first. So let's try that. And so that works. Now we say, you know, that's first. But we can also use this one, which is almost the same thing, but slightly more defined. So with this one, the or syntax basically says if it's undefined, or if it's null, or if it's an empty string, or if it's 0, if it's falsy, then do that side of it. What this one does is it says if this expression on this side is either null or undefined, and that's it, then use that side. So it's just a bit more specific. So let's go and do the same thing for middle, and then last. And there you go. So that'll give us a nice little, you know, a safe fallback. So in this case, you know, if I put in nothing, I at least get first and last. But to go on even a little further, let's just say that we want, for example, middle name to be optional. So we'll have another one, call it Dave. And Dave is Dave Smith, but middle is optional. And the way that we can do that is we can go over here and again add that question mark. So now middle is optional, and great news that we already have that case taken care of because of our optional chaining. So in this case, well, we're not going to see anything because I didn't console out, but let's console in Dave there as well. And now that works just fine, Dave Smith. There you go. Cool. All right, so Anchor, did I cover optional parameters for you? And also optional fields? Hope so. And John, thank you. Happy to help out with some new syntax items in there. An interesting thing that I've learned just recently about TypeScript is that one of the fundamental tenets of TypeScript is that it can be completely erasable, meaning that they're not going to add any new features to the language that if you were just to remove all the types, it would fail. So optional chaining works. I'm guessing that question mark is probably also going to be a thing. So that's an interesting thing when you think about like how TypeScript is going to help you. Don't expect it to go and generate a lot of code for you. That is specifically as a tenet of the language, something that they do not want to do. So as we get into things like generics, if you think that it's actually building up, yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah. So unknown versus any, and a great question, by the way. So let's just try it out. So okay, so let's create a new value. So that so is it? Yeah, it's just any foo. Actually, you know what? Okay. And that's a log, and we'll call that an any. Right? Obj.id, and that's fine. Now let's try that with obj2 and call that unknown. And that's a problem. So that's an example of a way in which unknown is tighter than any. And so in this case, what you'd have to do is, let's see, okay, so, all right, we'll create a new type of thing with ID, and then say that its ID is a number. And then we'll say that we have a new function that takes the prints thing with ID, and it'll take a thing which is unknown, and then we're going to console log out its ID, right? Thing.id. But that's not going to work. Oh wait, that's not going to work because it's syntactically incorrect right now. But what we can do at this point is we can coerce this back to a thing that has an ID. Thing as by using as, like that. So we can coerce thing to a thing from an unknown to a thing that we rely on that has a type, and there you go. You can do the same thing with any, but this is, again, so it's safer. It's considered like the better thing to do in TypeScript world is to use unknowns instead of any, because as I say, right, you can't just do stuff like this. You can't just dereference random crap off of an unknown. You actually have to coerce it into something that you know, and then you can use it from there. Hi, Danilo. I'm always excited about like all the new names because I get to try pronunciations on all these awesome names. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you guys thank you folks for sticking around. I have a Discord server that I jump onto at the end of all these videos, and you can just ask me questions. It's not recorded. It's super impromptu. If you have any, like, I know folks, you don't want to be recorded or anything. That's cool. So unless there are any more questions, I'm going to jump off and hit that Discord server. Let me go and get that URL for you. A couple of interesting things have come up recently, by the way, also. So you just copy that link address and pop it in here, and you're more than welcome to jump on that server. I did update, if you're watching the Module Federation stuff, I updated all of the code for all of the previous videos. Obviously, I didn't update the videos themselves, but it was pretty much just a matter of changing out the Webpack configs, and then they worked just fine. So, all of that is now on Webpack 5, which has been released. And so I think there's going to be some really cool stuff happening. I know, for example, Zach Jackson just yesterday put up on Twitter that he had Next.js working with Webpack 5. So that is super exciting. I can't wait until it's actually a thing where we have like a directory, like maybe /federated or something, where you can just drop in some components and have them automatically federated. That'd be so cool. All right, well, I am going to jump onto the Discord server, and I will see you over there, hopefully. Jump on in and say hello. And again, not recorded, totally impromptu. You can just sign up and have some fun. All right.